So iPad shopping can be a little bit confusing, especially with the current lineup and all of its variations in price and size and features. That's why in this video, I'm going to be going over the iPad mini 5th generation, comparing it to the iPad 10.2 inch, the new baseline iPad Apple launched recently, in order to help you decide which one is right for you, especially because they're so close in price. But before we continue here, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, as the algorithm likes that and will help push my content to more people. So design-wise, the non-Pro iPads in 2019 have very similar design characteristics, the same placement of the home button, the front-facing camera, similar looking volume buttons and power buttons, same looking speaker grills, and the same lightning input location. Obviously, the main differences between the 10.2 inch and the Mini 5 here first start off with the form factor. We have a full-size tablet. With the 10.2 inch, it's the size of a notebook. It has a bigger display, which comes with its positives. However, it's just less portable and less pocketable. And then with the Mini, we obviously have a miniature form factor, hence the name here. It's one-handable. You could fit it into a pocket if it's big enough. With speaker quality, it's better with the 10.2 inch, I have to say. Not that it's bad here, it's just that the 10.2 inch has more room to, I think, reverberate. I think it has less physical restriction, which allows the drivers to produce better quality sound, whereas with the Mini here, it sounds okay, but it sounds like it's coming out of a smaller enclosed area, like a tin can. So yeah, speaker quality is definitely better with the 10.2 inch in regard to music listening and YouTube watching. Another distinction lies in the biometrics. We have Touch ID first generation with the 10.2 inch and Touch ID second generation with the Mini here. But in terms of everyday performance, unlocking, I don't see a huge difference at all. And the last key distinction is in thickness. With the iPad Mini, we have a laminated display here, which makes the chassis come in around 6 millimeters thick, which is really thin and very comfortable to hold, like its iPad Air 2 predecessor, which introduced this thickness here. Whereas the 10.2 inch iPad has a non-laminated display, which does not accommodate that thin of a chassis. It definitely feels thicker and chunkier. We also have the smart connector here, which allows you to connect to Apple's homegrown keyboard case and other keyboard cases. But heading back to thickness, it's not as comfortable to hold compared to the Mini, but that's definitely not a reason not to buy this. It's just a little bit, once again, thicker and chunkier. In regard to their displays, both have their own advantages. Of course, the iPad 10.2 inch is bigger, which allows you to have, things scale up a little bit more, like the virtual keyboard, which I find more comfortable. This is a little bit more cramped. However, when you are in portrait mode, it is nice to, type like this, sort of like you would on an iPhone. So that's one thing about scaling that is different between these two devices. But I'll talk more about scale when it comes to usage case and performance later in this video. In terms of the actual display quality, it's better here with the Mini 5, despite, once again, the size difference. Resolution's not that much different. It's the PPI that's different. When you scale down a display with a similar resolution, the pixels become smaller, which makes this a sharper looking display. So icons and really everything from text to images are just going to look sharper with the Mini here, despite, once again, its smaller size, which might not be appealing to you. It also has P3 color and True Tone, which does make the colors look a lot more natural and vibrant in every situation. This display just looks more blue. However, if you're not comparing these side by side, you'll definitely acclimate to the look of this display. I wouldn't say it's the biggest deal, but yeah, definitely things look sharper here and more colorful with the Mini 5. But in regard to video streaming or movie watching, which I assume is a big task people do with their iPads, it's definitely going to be more enjoyable with the 10.2 inch here, despite the better color and sharpness with the Mini, because this is just a bigger tablet. That just makes sense. So I would say if video streaming is one of your biggest tasks or a reason why you want to buy an iPad, I would say save some money, go with the 10.2 inch. Bigger really is better, despite, once again, the better color and better sharpness with the Mini 5. However, I will mention once again, there is an air gap with the 10.2 inches display here. It feels less modern in comparison to the Mini 5's display, where it feels like you're really touching the pixels. To quickly touch on battery life here, Apple has the same ratings for both these devices, all day 9 to 10 hour battery life. And from my experience, that seems to be accurate here. They drain at a similar rate. They both have power efficient processors, albeit the A12 might be a little bit more than the A10, and they have proportionally sized batteries with their overall size displays. So I would say you're going to get similar battery life overall with both these devices, whether you're web surfing, watching video, gaming, etc. From what I can tell, I would not buy one over the other for the sake of screen on time. I'm sure there is a better performing one, especially if you were to conduct a really in-depth scientific test. However, I, in my testing, have not been able to discern a difference, and I can guarantee you both of these iPads will last you all day, regardless of which one you get. Next up, let's talk cameras here. Not really that eventful with these iPads. The back-facing cameras have the same sensor sensor size, resolution, video recording capabilities. They're good for, mundane tasks, taking pictures of things around your office or for schoolwork. I would not recommend, taking pictures of your kids or taking pictures at like a family event. It's just kind of weird. You know how I am about iPad photography, but if you're about that, don't get offended. I've had somebody really get mad at me for saying you shouldn't take pictures on an iPad, but that's just me. Whereas with the front-facing cameras, the Mini 5 has a higher resolution 5-megapixel sensor here with front-facing flash that makes use of the display, so selfies are going to be better. Video chatting via FaceTime might be a little bit higher quality. Whereas with the 10.2-inch, you have a 1.2-megapixel front-facing camera here. More noise, lesser quality, but I would say if you're video chatting, you're not going to notice that much of a difference, and I don't think people are taking selfies with their iPads all the time either, so I would say this isn't a big deal. I would not buy the iPad mini just because it has a better front-facing camera. And last up, in regard to usage case and performance, let's first talk about raw numbers here. With the iPad 10.2-inch, we have the A10 Fusion chip, whereas with the iPad mini, we have the A12, and it makes a big difference. So doing really intensive tasks like heavy gaming, I don't know, playing like Call of Duty Mobile, or I don't know, editing 4K video in LumaFusion is just going to be a better experience with the iPad mini here. It is the better performer. Both have the same amount of RAM though, so multitasking is going to be, I would say, a similar experience. You're going to be able to keep a similar amount of apps open in the background. But of course, people say, numbers don't mean anything. What about everyday performance? I will tell you the iPad mini is definitely snappier here than the 10.2-inch iPad, especially in regard to its animations. Things just look a little bit more choppy and outdated here, like you have an older iPad that's been updated to a newer version of iOS, despite the fact that this is technically a new iPad. Yeah, I would say apps are just going to open quicker with the iPad mini here. Let's open up App Store here. You can definitely tell the increase in performance here, just a generational jump between the processors here, despite the fact that they have the same internet connection. So apps are going to open quicker, just everyday performance is going to be better. But it's not bad with the iPad mini. It still runs iPadOS very, very nicely. And if you're doing, basic tasks like web surfing and schoolwork, you're not going to really find any issue with it. So with that difference in performance outlined, who are these iPads for, especially in regard to their form factor here? Well, like I said about scaling, if you're doing like work-oriented tasks like typing here with the virtual keyboard, it's just going to be better with the iPad 10.2-inch, especially in landscape mode. You just have a lot more room for working. This is especially true when it comes to multitasking. You just have more room here with the 10.2-inch iPad. It's almost like you have two smaller iPad minis next to each other versus like two phones next to each other with the mini here. You just have more room to work with, especially when it comes to note-taking or using the Apple Pencil. And it's not that you can't take notes with the iPad mini. I've done it before and it's been a nice experience, especially with the, non-air-gapped display here. However, with the 10.2-inch iPad, it's more similarly sized to a piece of paper, and it allows you to rest your hand on a part of the screen when you're writing. So I just find it to be a less cramped experience. So if you're going to be, drawing or doing a lot of note-taking or doing a lot of work with the Apple Pencil, I would say go with the 10.2-inch if you don't need the A12's power with the iPad mini. The same can be said about web surfing. Of course, if you like the smaller form factor, then by all means go with the iPad mini, but the bigger display here does allow you to view web pages, bigger, scale up a little bit more, which makes, reading text a little bit easier. I don't know if you're an older person or if you're buying this for your grandma or your grandpa or your parents even, they're probably going to enjoy the bigger screen on here a little bit more. But if you're doing creative work, while the bigger display is a really nice feature of the 10.2-inch iPad, definitely go with the mini once again for the power of the A12. It'll process photos and video quicker, and you also once again get better color here with P3 and True Tone. And if you're a parent and you're like, well, which iPad should I buy for my kids? If my parents got me an iPad when I was like 10 or 11, I would have freaked out regardless of which one it was. However, if you do want to spend the extra money, it might be a little better for them to get the iPad mini, better gaming performance, better size for their smaller hands. But the 10.2-inch iPad is just as fun, and they're not going to really care about the difference in performance, I would say. And then in regard to gaming, in my opinion, I would totally go with the iPad mini 5. While the display is bigger here, it might be nicer for a game of like, I don't know, Clash of Clans. You get more power here, and you just get more, I don't know, control over the overall body of the iPad. I enjoyed it more when I was playing Call of Duty Mobile. I just feel like I could reach the controls better. You also get, once again, better performance with the A12 massively compared to the A10 Fusion here. However, the iPad 10.2-inch did hold up in my gaming test with it. I played everything from PUBG to, Call of Duty Mobile, and it was just fine even with the A10. However, of course, it does perform more poorly, and I don't know, I just feel like it's more unwieldy, especially when playing titles with a lot of in-game controls. So ultimately, I would say iPad 10.2 inch is meant for people who want to do video streaming and or work-based functions, you know, especially if you're a student or an adult or an older person, you want that bigger display, and you could care less that it's lesser quality and that the processor inside is not as high-powered as the A12 and the Mini 5. Whereas with the iPad Mini 5 here, because of its smaller display, I would say it's less geared towards work. However, you can get work done on here just fine, and if you do enjoy the small form factor, then the more power to you. I would say it's more geared towards gaming, and then like I said, if you want to do content creation and you don't have all the money to spend, buy this tablet once again for its P3 color and the powerful processor inside. And that about wraps things up. I hope this comparison helped you out. Once again, I really appreciate it if you leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, and subscribe for more content like this. I have a lot more iPad content coming, so if you enjoyed this video, definitely stick around. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.